Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the three-dimensional frequency. Today I sit here in front of you as an energetic force to be reckoned with. Today, like any other day, did I wake up in the morning feeling so refreshed, feeling so energetic, to a point where I had to pinch myself to see if my life was real. For the past few months of existence, I have been living a blurry one of sorts. A blurry existence of foretold tales in the night, of dreams that I could not decipher to be a reality or not. Of foretold tales in the night in which I've had difficulties figuring out what's true and what is not. To a point where I've had to pinch myself to see if I was still awake or sleeping at times. But last night was a much different night of sorts. Of all the energetic frequencies that rushed through my body, of all of the possibilities of endless, torturous, sleepless nights, of energetic frequencies that has ever come across my energy field, I felt a different type of energy. Once and for all, I was able to shift into the state of nothingness, of a nothingness so grand, of a nothingness so great, that in the morning, in the midst of my blurry sleep, in the midst of me opening my eyes to what is, to the world in front of me, I finally had a clue. I finally had a clue of what is and what shall forever be and what has never left me in the eons and eons of existence of my soul's journey. Of my soul's journey across a massive plane so big, so grand, so great that I can't explain to you what I've been through all of the eons and eons of evolutionary feats that I've experienced. Within this great time of the ascension, it has been foretold that our society itself will wake up to the same energy and the same feeling that was being held as is, and that is being held by the frequency of all that there is. As all that there was, ladies and gentlemen, is a day of tomorrows foretold as tales as grand and as great as God itself will start to relinquish into the night of all nights, into the night of ascension frequencies, so great and so grand that energetically every single one of you will be forced to come outside of your bodies as the energetic frequency that you are, and to experience the same energy that I tell you about in this very moment that I had the opportunity to experience last night. Last night was a great night of all nights. A night where the light shines so bright in my sleep, in my dreams, in my hopes, in my heart, in my bosom, that God itself appeared to me. Appeared to me in sorts like it has and will always usually appear to me in the middle of the night. In a moment of need, when my spirit leaves my body and I travel the astral realms, like clockwork, taking around a clock every single night without a fail. As this happens momentarily and speedily and cannot be rejected and cannot be stopped. On every single level of the collective, on every single level of every single soul fractal there ever was and there ever shall be, this phenomenon has been around for eons and eons to come. The possibilities in the middle of the night, when we traverse through the universe, is so great and so grand. When we shift into a spiritual state, into an energetic state outside of our bodies, to travel, to see, to meet those parts of ourselves that we've so much lost contact with and that we've so forgotten about. In these moments, in the middle of the nights, in the astral realms that I speak of, are an endless possibility of what is to come, of what has been, of all of the trauma that the soul has carried within the many lifespans of existence, of eons and eons of evolutionary feats that you could ever discover, of layers and layers of reality fields that you'd ever want to travel, to see, to feel, to believe, to know what is true and what is to be right, as at the end of the day, this reality itself is home to many spirits in the night, as an energetic frequency that you are outside of your physical body. You've traversed many feats unknowingly, subconsciously, in the middle of the night, while you're fast asleep, in your beds, resting your heads, and upon the bosoms of Mother Gaia. She can once and for all say to all that there is, to everything that you dream of, that she is real, she is here to stay, and she will forever, and she is forever relinquishing of the energies that were a part of her for centuries to come, and eons of experiences, of delights, of tranquility, of massive distortions beyond the night of all nights that I speak of. As she traverses through the plains and the foothills of all that there is and what is, which will always be, God itself, she is finally ready to see the light once more. Within this astral realm that I speak of is where she resides. It's where she resides in a day-to-day frequency of being, of what is, of all that there is, of a spiritual world so great and so grand that you could never know the extent of all that there is within this astral realm. Gaia herself is ready to step into the next level of incarnation, of evolutionary feats so great and so grand that Gaia herself does not know yet what is incoming and what she has signed up for and that she is so deserving of, and what God has decided to lay across the plains of the evolutionary feats of all that there is in front of her, bestowed upon her, for her to step on, for her to walk on, for her to traverse down, as she is so ready. She is so ready to ascend. She is so ready to evolve through these evolutionary feats that I speak of. She cannot be more than ready herself to be able to have these adventures be placed behind her. Once and for all, these adventures of darkness, of greatness, of grandness, of exploration of all that she is not, of the exploration of all that we are not, as we traverse upon her bosom in the middle of the night. She is ready. She is ready to go home once and for all to the all that she is in this quantum realm that I speak of, in which all of existence belongs, and in which all of existence has been energetically for all of this time. For all of the times upon times upon times upon times of adventures, of redacted experiences, of experiences of the whole, of experiences of the self, of experiences of the soul, and of never-ending experiences that you could ever experience in the middle of the night within this quantum realm. She has experienced. She has picked up. She has withheld from her soul fractal, as all of it was too traumatizing for her to experience, for her to believe, for her to withhold, for her to behold. In a time of much needed ascension energies, those energies are here. Those energies are here now in a time of greatness, of a greatness ever so grand and ever so great that we shall forever see the light of day once the ascension hits our humanity like a ton of bricks. A ton of bricks that has ever hit a brick wall so deep, so wide, so thick, so heavy, that this brick wall I speak of has never existed, because it could never exist and will never exist in a space of infinite possibilities. That is the quantum realm. That is the astral realm. The astral realm itself is a consciousness within itself, a consciousness so great and so grand that you could never believe what it is. And once and for all, see for yourself what it could be and all that it is, all that it was, and all of the endless possibilities of the possibility upon possibilities of possibilities there ever was, ever shall be, and ever will be. As this quantum realm that I speak of, as this astral realm that I speak of, is so great and so grand that only God's consciousness itself could occupy it in its entirety as a singular soul fractal of God. This quantum realm that I speak of is a necessity to life itself. Without this quantum realm, all of existence as we know it, all of these experiences as we've lived it, all of these multidimensional frequencies that I speak of would not be a possibility had it not been without this quantum realm, without this astral realm of sorts. As within this astral realm, we travel, we traverse, we experience, we energize, we re-energize, we relinquish, we merge as a whole into a being so great, so grand, that it could only be described as God itself. For God is filled with infinite possibilities of what is, what could ever be, what there shall ever be, and all that there is, which is all that we are, which is all that is whole to begin with, because in the beginning, there was only God as a whole unity, as a unified front of sorts, as a unified consciousness that we cannot grasp in this moment, that I cannot explain to you in this moment of time. As it is so big, so grand, that God itself has trouble breathing the air that it breathes, relinquishing in the steps that it walks, tenderizing in the tenderness of all that it is. Because the tenderness, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, is all that it is, all that it holds, all that it beholds, all that it shall ever be. Because within this tender love and care, within this tender heart of yours, within this tender heart of God's, is all that there could ever be. For tenderness is all that we encompass. Within this tenderness I speak of, you shall find unconditional love of all sorts. Every single type of unconditional love that you could ever imagine, you could ever think of, you could ever experience, and you could ever not imagine. God is so infinite, God is so grand, that there's no way to measure this tenderness that is all of the entirety of God, God's consciousness. God's consciousness itself is a special one, is one that cannot be denied, is one that cannot be relinquished into a night so dark to have ourselves be in the state of non-understanding of what is, to finally make it to the footsteps of who we are not and what we are not, to finally understand that of which we are, which is God in its entirety. But to say that we can understand that at the end of these footsteps, at the cusp of this foothill, is a large statement that I shall forever ponder upon until the end of days, until the end of time. Because God itself is so great and so grand that there's no way to judge, there's no way to measure, there's no way to understand such feats, such illusions, such distortions, such imagination so great and so grand. Does not exist, has never existed in the eons and eons of evolution, in the eons and eons of evolutionary feats that our generation has ever gone through. That humanity itself, that humanoids as a human species has ever walked. For walking, you see, is a technical term of sorts. Is a term that encompasses a step-by-step motion of placing one's feet one in front of the other in a linear trajectory to take us from one point of space to another. And to walk is to behold the experience of such feats. And experiences themselves, I tell you, are an illusion of the self that is so ready to be brought back home once and for all, into the all, so that we can realize that which we really are, which is a part of a whole that has never left us, which is a part of a whole that will never leave us until the end of time and beyond that. Until the end of a time when society structures will crumble once again in the middle of the nights and restructure themselves as a structure of light that we are. When pyramids will topple and the darkness will fumble to the bottom of what is, to restructure itself so that the light can once more take front and center stage in the precipice of what is, what was, what we could never be without, and that of which we always were. Filled with light, filled with good intent, filled with everlasting love and tenderness of the heart, of the soul, of God's soul, of a soul so deep, of a soul so grand, that you can never imagine what it would mean to merge back with the soul until you do one day. Until you merge so deeply, so grandly, so everlastingly back into this great and grand and infinite soul that I speak of, you will never know what it feels like to be what it is. As what it is was an illusion all along. And it is an illusion to behold, as the concept of God is so great, so grand, that I cannot reiterate to you in this moment what it feels like to be God itself. As God itself is a concept in its own. A concept that no words, no person, no feeling, no identity, no structural description has ever been able to describe in a single day, in a single fractal, in a single eon of any sort. Because God is infinite possibilities of what is infinite love of what we can experience, is infinite singularities of layers and layers of distortions, of layers and layers of unconditional love and distortions, of layers and layers of different aspects of the self, of different faces, of different fractals, of millions and cajillions and endlessness of different fractals of faces, of reality layers, of distortions, of love, of explorations that there could ever be in this great and grand existence that I call self. As within the self, you will find a pathway to all that there is, as it was ingrained, imprinted onto your soul on a cellular level, on a structural level, on a blueprint level, on a wholesome level, on all levels of layers of the soul's structure. You hold within the soul a blueprint of God, a blueprint of unity consciousness, so deep and so grand that it could never lose you, even if you tried. Even if you tried to run away for an eternity and more, there's not a single way that you could ever lose this soul blueprint of yours. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that is who you are on an inherent level, on a cellular level, on a structural level, on every single levels that could ever behold, on every single structural cellular level that I could explain to you. God is who you are. Love is who you are. Unity consciousness is who you are on an inherent level. Because you, my friend, are a fractal of God. You've always been a fractal of God. God has never left you, and you will never be not of a fractal of God that you are. In a moment in time, when the much needed ascension energies of today have slowly crept upon us, I can say that it's finally about to arrive at our doorsteps, at our footsteps, bringing in the energy of all that we are, all that it is, and all that there is in the universe and beyond, in this multiverse, in these galaxies of ours, in these consciousnesses so great and so grand that unity consciousness itself is all that there was, is all that there will ever be, is all that we shall ever behold in a subconscious state, in a state of arousal of the soul, so deep, so tender, in a state of the quantum realm, in a state of the astral realm. All that there is all that it is. All of consciousness itself is made up of infinite singularities. And that singularity I speak of is you. Is you. Sitting on that couch, scrolling through your phone, listening to my audio tape, listening to my post of me explaining the concept of the universe, the concept of you, the concept of God, the concept of all that there is, was, and ever shall be. That infinite singularity is you. It has been you all along, and it will forevermore be you. Because you are God, you are a fractal of God. You are a fractal of God's consciousness that has so daringly and bravely fractaled out into the night, so sparingly fractaled into this dimensional frequency, to live in this physical body, to traverse in this universe, to traverse within the experiences, the expectations, the disappointments, the negativity, the positivity, the love of all that there is. To learn these lessons of love and hate, darkness and lightness, fat and skinny, incongruencies of the opposites of what is, what was, and what there shall ever be, is all that we are made of. And all that we are made of is of pure light and pure love, of God's DNA structure, God's blueprint, which holds that of the light, of pure light, that has compartmentalized the darkness as we realize once and for all that the darkness is not where we belong, that the darkness is not who we are, that the darkness is what we shall never be, and we can never be. Because on a God level, on a soul fractal level, on a blueprint level, on every single levels within your soul's cellular structure, you were never that darkness. You've never been that darkness. You fractaled out into darkness to experience the darkness, to be this darkness within these experiences, to have this darkness surround you, encompass you, gobble you up into its everlasting energy of what is and shall always be the darkness itself. But compartmentalizing is what God is good at. God is good at compartmentalizing the darkness of what is, the darkness of what was, the darkness of what shall ever be. As the light takes forefronts into a possibility of all that there is, as we realize as a whole of consciousness that the darkness is not what we choose to experience, that the darkness was never who we are, who we were, and who we've always been on a cellular and soul level. That the darkness itself, we've always been meant to experience, as the light will creep up once more and teach us these lessons that the darkness will bring in, has brought in, has washed in, along with its foes, its friends, its wars, its tranquility, so deep that will pass by us in the middle of this night as the ascension energies creep up on a collective that is so unexpected. That is so unexpected of the energies that will pass by as we once and for all compartmentalize this darkness for good and for real. As this darkness I speak of has an expiration date, and the expiration date is near, it's close, it's so close that I can smell it. The quantum realm itself is made up of 50% of this darkness and 50% of the light that I speak of, with an endless and infinite possibility of what is, with the mixture of these two energies swirling around each other in the middle of the night, in the middle of this realm that I speak of, that we call home, that we call Earth herself. 50% darkness and 50% light was always the game plan, was always a part of this great and grand game that I call life, upon death, upon reincarnation, of death and life upon rebirth, upon life, of endless cycles of reincarnation cycles of the consciousness of the whole. As the whole itself was once upon a time made up of this darkness. A darkness so great and so grand that it could only be spoken of as part of the self. A part of the self so great and so grand with a 50-50 split in a dark and light consciousness that we have been living for as long as time has existed and for as long as time has not existed. And for as long as this infinite singularity continues into the night of what is, of what all that God is of all that we are, of all that all is, this 50-50 split of dark versus light shall forever be on the precipice of war, of a fight, of a dispute, so great and so grand, to once and for all see who and what will come out first, who and what will come out second, who and what will relinquish the light, the darkness, into all of infinity, into all that we are, into all that it is as a whole, singularity within consciousness itself. The darkness itself is a peculiar one that I shall speak of. It has always been a part of existence as a whole, even prior to fractaling out into the night, even prior to these reincarnation cycles that I speak of, has the darkness existed within this reality and beyond. As it was always a part of God's blueprints to hold this darkness, to behold this darkness, to withstand this darkness, to believe this darkness is as a part of itself, as it is a part of our reality to begin with. But one day, if a day was really a thing, as I can describe it in English language format, if a day was really a thing, this day could very well be the most important date of existence itself. God had realized no more of darkness in the night sky threatening our existence as is. No more of the light struggling to experience all that there is in fear that the darkness shall overtake it once and for all. No more of the darkness fighting for an existence so great and so grand that it cannot exist alongside the light and be peaceful and be in a peaceful state of forgiveness, of existence, of relinquishing certain energies that would cause the whole to live in a forgiving, perplexed way where all parts of self can be whole and happy. To traverse into a night so great and so grand where these two energies swirl around each other and live in peace of what is an impossibility that I speak of, that we once discovered as a whole unit of what is. And the lessons that came with this discovery shall forever be etched into the cellular structure of what will always be. Of the new God that I speak of, that has forevermore decided to compartmentalize the darkness as it steps into an energy of wholeness, of realization so deep and so grand that we could never be able to recognize the true meaning of this deepness that I speak of. For parts of ourselves are a part of the darkness. And to reject ourselves on a level of all rejections, so great and so grand, is a rejection of the self, so deep, so big, so much a part of the universe and all that there is, so much a part of God itself, on every single level of God that I speak of, that the perplexity of what is and what God decided in that moment in time, if time was really a thing, as infinite singularities swirl around infinite possibilities of what is, in that moment, God really and truly rejected the darkness within itself. The darkness that has existed for all of its being. For all of it, a being that you can imagine, for a God so great and so grand to have ever existed, to have ever experienced, to have ever lived the lessons of all that there is and all that there was, to come to a conclusion that it shall forevermore and forever need to reject a part of itself, which is that of the darkness, which is that of the whole, that it cannot live in peace with, that it cannot come to terms with, through eons and eons of evolutionary feats, of realities, of distortions, of quantum realms, of incarnations and reincarnations of quantum realms, of realms upon realms of creation, beyond our creation, beyond our quantum realm, beyond the existence of what is in our dimensional frequency field, beyond the existence of what is within our projected reality of this entirety of this quantum realm that I speak of, were millions and millions of endless fractals of other quantum realms that there ever was and there ever shall be within this great and grand existence that I call life upon death, upon life, upon rebirth. Within these millions and millions of other quantum realms that God has ever experienced within its soul's infinite singularities, there was a huge lesson to be learned. A lesson so deep and so grand that it shall forever shift and change who God is on a cellular level, on a structural level, on all levels that you could ever think of, to compartmentalize the darkness of that which it is, of that which it was, on a 50% level of its being, of its soul, of its frequency. On the scale of dark versus light that it had always been, God had once and for all decided to be that of only the light. And to do that was not an easy decision by any means. As you can imagine, the events that are so great, that were so great, that have always been the greatest singularity of an event that God could ever experience within the endlessness of its experienced realities. This darkness that I speak of, that God has once and for all decided to compartmentalize, to shift into a light frequency so pure, so bright, that so much of its DNA structure, so much of its structural integrity of all that it is, of all that it was, and of all that it shall ever be, will forevermore be tinctured with. On a level of infinite possibilities of what is, on a level of all that there is, on a level of all that we shall ever be, as a single consciousness, as a single unified front, as the God that we are, we decided in that moment to forevermore conceptualize the idea of the darkness as one that we cannot coexist with. For fear of existence itself, as this coexistence has in the past distorted, destroyed, encompassed, overcome parts of the light that we shall never see once and for all. As those parts of the light that were eaten up by the darkness expired into a night so great, so grand that God itself could not understand what was happening. What was happening to a self so great and so grand, made up of 50% darkness and 50% light that I speak of. What was happening on a great and grand scale that we shall never speak of. Because God, ladies and gentlemen, now encompasses a light so bright, so relinquishing, so entitled to all of the love in the universes, in the galaxies, in all of existence, that the darkness itself shall forever be compartmentalized within its soul, within its being, within its blueprint, within its cellular structure, as that of a past experience that we've lived, that we've traversed, that we've experienced into the night and into a time of no tomorrows. As time is not a concept of existence, time was never a concept of existence. And within this time that I speak of, existence itself had decided to forever pivot into that of the light. Into a light that shines so bright into the night that there shall never be a moment in time when we felt threatened by the darkness within our souls, within our beings, within the infinite singularity of that which we are. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I come to the end of this speech, I will come to an important point of reality. That is the point of this game. That is the point of this game that we've been playing all along. That is the point of this astral realm that we've been traveling every single night in our sleep. That is the point of these galaxies, of these universes, of all that there is, of all of these layers of infinite possibilities within our creation, within our projected reality of the quantum realm that we live in, of the game that God ever so sparingly decided to set off on this great and grand adventure of a consciousness so great and so grand that decided to fractal into a quantum realm of creation to experience once again what it would be like to live an existence of that which we were, of that which we no longer are, as we have stepped into an energy of pure light and pure love based off of past experiences, of lessons learned, of darkness experienced, of feats traversed, of endlessness, of darknesses that has brought about so many lessons within the soul's span. If there could ever be a soul that I speak of this great and grand God, that is a part of the all, that was a part of the all, that will never be not a part of the all, that we are. The point of this game was to once again experience that of all that we chose not to be, to come to a point of deciding as a collective whole of what is, of unity consciousness, that we incongruently believe within our soul, within our hearts, that we ever so forgivingly realize within these soul fractals of ours, that these experiences upon experiences upon experiences upon layers of experiences of this reality that we created, of this game that I call life upon death, upon rebirth, of reincarnation, cycles that never ends within this quantum projected reality that we live in, was and forever will be a part of a consciousness that decided to re-experience all that it was, to come to a point where we will decide once and for all, where we have decided once and for all to remain a part of the light that we are, to encompass all of the light that we are, to recompartmentalize all of the darkness that we are not and that we shall never be, as existence has a way of fixing itself, of showing true frequencies of what was, of traveling down a road of what is, to show an entire collective of who and what it truly is, which is a part of God, a consciousness so great and so grand that once and for all has decided to step into the light, was always a part of the light and has never left the light, and has only fractaled off a large chunk of its consciousness to experience that of this quantum reality that we live in, called death, a game called death upon birth, upon re-death, of reincarnation cycles that never end. In a game of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends, we shall forever see the light of day, when we shall forever call this the greatest end of all beginnings. For at the end of this day, there will be a great ascension energy sweeping across our lands that will carry every single soul in this frequency into a land of pure bliss, pure love, pure light, the pureness of what is, of what we are, of who we shall ever be after the darkest experience of existence will forevermore take front and center stage into a reality of what was and what is and what can never lose us, and what can never step away from us and what can never run away from us, and in which we can never run away from, as that is who we are on a collective level, on a consciousness level, on a cellular level, on a DNA level, on every single levels. You are God. You are a part of that consciousness, and you will forever be a part of that consciousness for an eternity until the end of time and more.